Right. Got it. Hi, Thato.
Hi, Thando.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Uthini December?
Hey, get December, like we're now in December. Please.
People
We are now
should
in
have fun.
December.
Fun should be held yet, regardless of our lockdown. Anyway, thank you for coming through today. It's the first episode of the podcast here to 16 days. And I'm sure we're going to have a total of 10 episodes, starting from today to 10 December. So what we want to talk about is 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. We want to talk about it from a frank point of view, because I feel like a lot is unsaid every time when people are talking about gender-based violence. For instance, if I ask people who is perpetrating violence, it could be against women, it could be against men, it could be against women. Whereas we're impendulo sitting with society, but it's the same society that we are always having conversations with every time we're talking about GBV. It's the same society that is always saying, it's wrong, violence is wrong, etc. But it's the same society again that perpetrates gender-based violence. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think we now have this very generic answer when it comes to who perpetrates GBV, like an answer that we want would be politically correct. Because I cannot point blank out and say my neighbor, I cannot point blank say the government, I cannot, because we have sort of boxed GBV, this tiny thing that has to be perpetrated by this demographic section. We don't exploit further, and we've further disintegrated GBV to just be this tiny little speck, which is about maybe it's just overshire or emotional abuse, but we just leave it there. We don't really further disintegrate it into everything. So we've just more or less monopolized what GBV is.
And remind me of the situation I used very recently. There's this friend in quotes of mine who witnessed a boyfriend a side chick The boyfriend had a side chick. The boyfriend was physically abusing the side chick. She witnessed that. And she was telling me that she had mixed feelings about the whole situation. And I'm like, how can you have mixed feelings about violence?
What mixed feelings are there about GBV?
It's the same. And then there's another situation that I witnessed very recently. Well, I think this one is more common and very unfortunate. When GBV happens at a home setup, we cover it up because it's someone close. And then kula situation that, well, I think last year, where we saw prominent people, the big brothers that we have as Bulawayo, being accused of rape here and there. But we wanted to hear their side of the story.
I think there is this part about me. I'm sorry, I am, in as much as I believe guilty as charged, I also would like to believe that when a woman says something, it is definitely happening. Despite the fact that we always have this, there is the malicious part of it. Yeah, they want to ruin an image, your monto or whatever. To be honest, 1% of the 99 cases that come out, whether it's rape or GBV, that 1% is the only 1% that is lying. So I am not going to totally disregard what somebody is saying about their experience because there is a 1% that lies. And I am saying this from an experience, like from a personal experience. As somebody, I don't like to call myself a victim or a survivor, but as somebody who's walked through the journey, as somebody who has experienced the journey of GBV, in as much as I may not look like the part, it is hard to actually open up and speak up about what you're going through, especially when the person out there portrays a different image. It is very hard. I can come up to you and say my partner is doing this, or so my boss is doing this to me, or my brother is doing this. But because they do not look like that, because according to society, perpetrators are supposed to look a certain way. And when somebody does not fit that portrayal or that box that they put perpetrators in, therefore they don't qualify to be a perpetrator, which is very unfair. It is very unfair because you're now saying—
What does a perpetrator look like, Thato?
This is my point, because have you ever noticed that you go to, you say, so and so did this to me, and they will tell you, but they don't look like the type. It means society says there is a type, which in as much as we all don't know what the type is, but apparently there is a type of what a perpetrator should look like.
No, it's mind-boggling. Then when we are now talking about gender-based violence, and we're now saying 16 days we should be amplifying a fight against gender-based violence, what are we doing?
Honestly, it is said that we're still at a point where with every 16 days, we're still talking about the very same issues that we keep talking about, in as much as society keeps progressing and we're still stuck on the very same issues because nobody is addressing those issues. Right now, we are busy talking about GBV physically, but we are now experiencing GBV online. But we're not going, we're light years to addressing GBV online because we're still stuck to discussing GBV in the physical form. We're not even going to talk about the cyberbullying that happens, the doxing that happens, the targeted harassment that happens online, which falls under GBV. But because we're still not yet conditioned to accept those things as GBV, as a society, we will ignore those and we'll still focus on the beating, the physical abuse. Hell, we are not even looking at the financial aspect of GBV.
I spend a lot of money on 16 days. We spend a lot of money on 16 days, a lot of money. But then, yeah, what practical solutions can then be there for this? Well, of course, I acknowledge you would see violence changes over time and the dynamics they are changing, as you're saying, would see maybe from the physical violence that we used to know to the online violence that we have now. But there are trends that are worrying, yes, that needs to be invested in as they come along. And then ulama issues, our intimate partner violence, ulama issues of domestic violence. And I think the other thing, always GBV is a fight against GBV as intense is maybe because we fail to further our distinctions between it being gender-based, it being domestic, and it being intimate partner. Someone was saying to me, Uti, amadoda acha abafazi all the time. But abafazi labo bacha amadoda ezindlini bayabahlupha emotionally, etc. But we really talk about those. So I realized Uti, those people think Uti, domestic violence, legit gender-based violence is the same thing.
For women.
Yeah. And then
also, I think we have come to a point where people just assume when we say GBV, it's for everyone. But then when you say gender-based violence against women, then we're looking at women. But when we say GBV, it's literally encompassing everyone, meaning we're saying everyone experiences GBV at a point in life. Literally everyone. That's where you come in, that we need to specify it and clarify it, that it's gender-based violence against women, or it's intimate partner violence, or it's domestic violence, because hell, your brother can actually perpetuate GBV. Your brother can be your abuser. Your father can be your abuser. So I think it's things that we need to be frank to ourselves and say we want to address. And we're not saying, oh, we're giving ourselves just 16 days. It's 365 days a year. It's something that we need to be tackling every day, because it's something that is happening every day. It is then very unfair that we spend so much money on 16 days, but then little or less is done throughout the year. Like, are we saying we're going to concentrate on that aspect on those given days only? What happens on the other days? Like, is this not happening on the other days? What are we doing to fight it on the other days? Because it's not just 16 days. It's every day. Every day somebody is being beaten up. Every day somebody is being raped. Every day somebody is being violated in some way. It happens every day. But if we're going to say we're going to actually look at it and 16 days, what exactly are we achieving? This is why we end up not achieving anything, because we're concentrating it on a certain part of the year, not every day of the year. So it becomes more of a, no, it's okay. We'll just think about GBV here and there. But then come 16 days, we're going to have this banging campaign, and yeah, but then that's it. Are we doing anything?
I think the fight should be the 365 days, as you are saying, but maybe the whole purpose of 16 days is so that amplifying, so that everyone across the different corners of the world is talking about it at the same time, so that we are a little bit more aware of its different dynamics and how it's affecting people. But tell me, you mentioned something very interesting, and it got me thinking, your brother can perpetrate gender-based violence on you or your father or your mother or whoever. So would you say there is anything African about the fight against gender-based violence? If you look at our cultures, if you look at maybe how we grew up, and maybe the society around us, and how everything was so physical for a very long time, and how families are set up in a particular way. Do you think any of this fight against gender-based violence is African?
Honestly, I will say I do not know what African is, to be honest, because when you look at how our culture is just a bridging ground for traumas. From how we are raised to families, it's literally a breeding ground for traumas. So I don't understand what is African about putting somebody through trauma and say it's culture, because we create culture, people create culture. So it means the culture that we claim was created by somebody. You do not even know what those people at that time were going through, or the context that we're going through. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying what they did was right, but I'm saying you do not know the context and how it came about. But as we grow, people adopted it. And as we grow, culture changes based on what is currently happening. Meaning, as individuals, as a generation, as people, we are the one that make the culture. So to be honest, there is nothing that is called African about something, because everything has a context to it. So when you look at how our families are set up, first of all, the setup is very patriarchal, and it is in every way meant to demean a woman in all aspects. There is nothing empowering about a patriarchal structure. So meaning beating up a woman has always been justified as a way of discipline and respect. And it stems on what? Patriarchy.
Reminds me of our sayings. Slama sayings, well, it may be the Ndebele language. Umuzwa kiwa ngendo. And then later on, people then interpreted that saying, that they meant is not the knobkerrie, but it's the penis. And so in a way, it was giving power, still giving power to the male. But maybe it's also about interpreting.
Because either way, that saying is very weird to me. Because if you're saying it's not a knobkerrie, it means you're saying it's a penis. So if you're saying it's a penis, it gives rapper vibes to me.
It's still weird, I say.
It's still weird either way. You can try and twist it either way. It's still weird. Either way, it is centered around a man. And which is very funny because Umuzi has not always been built by a man, but by a woman.
Mm.
Women have always been the homemakers from beginning of society.
Mm.
They have always been the homemakers. Men have always just taken pride and taken credit of everything, but the woman does everything else. So umuzi wakhona oyakhiwa ngenduku, whether it's a knobkerrie or a penis, yiwuphi exactly? Because now you're saying that the anatomy and whatever that the man provides is what makes a home, which is not it.
I think along the way we lost love. We lost love along the way because you would realize it's now all about power. It's about who has more power over who. But as I acknowledge the different contributions that either a man or woman brings to any relationship, or whoever brings anything to the society that we are living in, you'd realize we are having some of these conversations because young women have been degraded in society, and the role I play in building us as a society, layo isibenza babe prone to be beaten up, to violence, etc. So I think it's because of power. We do not understand the power those days, but it's really affecting us and how we are navigating these spaces a lot.
Oh yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, it really is, because if you're outspoken, you're problematic. And if you're problematic, it means you need to be taught a lesson. So, yeah.
And at times, if they cannot teach you a lesson, in whichever way, they will use physical force.
Yes, you have to conform. Somehow they have to make you conform because you're out of line. And which is crazy because and the next woman will be watching that there is nothing that they are doing. Either they are cheering for it or they are just going to tell you, oh,
like
no, it's something that happens.
Earlier on.
Yes.
Yeah, in that scenario, that woman was cheering for it. I don't know why. You can't have mixed feelings when someone is experiencing pain.
No,
so I think not just as women, but the rest of the society. What are the women doing? But what are the men who are around also doing? This person is experiencing pain. I might experience pain in some day, and I would need someone who really holds my hand through the pain.
This reminds me of this. It's about a month or two back. So I think it's 2 months back, where outside my house, I witnessed a man beating up a woman outside. And I looked through the window and every man was watching. I was so livid. I was so pissed. I screamed from my window to the extent that I was holding onto the bar, like of the window, to the extent that, when you're so much mad at what is happening outside, you are screaming and you're yelling, you don't even realize that you're hitting your own self. That is where I was. I screamed and I was like, you know what? If you're going to pick on somebody your own size. Because the only reason at some point that men decided they're going to stop the fight is when the woman got into the car after she had been beaten and she was bleeding. The guy had blood all over him, and the woman, when the woman was driving away, the guy decided to pick up stones and throw to the car. That's when the guys that were watching decided, oh no, let's step in. And like, no,
because the guy is now getting hurt.
But the entire time they were watching, I was mad.
It was not because of the car that they actually intervened.
Yes, I was literally mad. I was hurt. Do you know what you like? So society would rather watch you die than do anything. This is the society that we live in, which brings me back to the friend that you mentioned, that if you're going to say you have mixed feelings about your boyfriend beating up your side chick, do you know that very same boyfriend is the one that's going to beat you to death? Because you saw it happen.
There's the potential. There's the potential.
You saw it happen. You
if someone is capable of inflicting pain, someone is capable of inflicting pain, what will stop them from doing it to you? So it becomes a trend. It becomes a habit. It becomes something that is within that person, that maybe we need to try and, I don't know, maybe also our justice system, because I recently read the statistics on the people who, a number of cases, our rape that have been reported versus a number of abantu who actually are in jail for rape. I think we have a very low incarceration rate for victims of rape. It could be 7% even. Cases are reported, but some of them never go to court, and some of them really never pass through. As our justice system still needs, there's a lot that needs to be done.
I strongly feel like our justice system somehow fails us, because our justice system to some extent perpetuates rape culture. Because if I'm going to go to a police station and report that I was raped, it is very sad that before they even take my rape report, they will start profiling me. Before it even goes to the actual thing that I'm there to report, they will profile me to the extent that by the time I do the report, I feel like it was my fault that it happened. So I'm not going to go report, because I don't want to feel shitty on top of everything that traumatizing that has already happened to me. I am not about to go through another traumatizing procedure, because I want justice that I probably will never get, and that that the person will probably come through and try and sort and say,
can you talk about how
get away?
Can we also talk about how the victim-friendly unit is usually not around at police stations?
I don't get, this is one part that I don't get. You're saying you're a victim-friendly unit, but if you go to the police station, what, 10, you're told to off. How have they knocked off? They're supposed to be around 24 hours a day. How? So if they've knocked off, I can't report a crime today, because if I go a charge office will throw me around and have 10 people listen to my story, because they are not even so friendly. So I have to wait like an entire 6 to 8 hours so that you guys come through and take my case. At that time, if I have been raped, 3 quarters of the time, the evidence in me is contaminated. So please make it make sense. They balance me. I don't understand how that works. I genuinely don't. What is the victim-friendly unit's job exactly? Because they seem to not be doing their job half the time. It's like a glorified department in the station that is never around for anything.
They're never available. And also moving from I'm a police to the courts, have you realized how our lawyers will use the same standards that perpetrate violence in society to make a case for a rapist.
It is very sad that defense lawyers, to be precise, are meant to defend. So 3/4 of the defense lawyers will tell you that the story that I put out there in court is not even my story. It's the person that I am defending story. So whatever it is that I am saying, they are not even my words, but they are words. Because now I am bound by privilege, lawyer-client privilege, and everything. I have to do everything that is in my best to save them.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that maybe going back to our laws, going back to everything, coming back to how we live with each other as people, we really need to like escalate and amplify those conversations. And I think it's super truthful. We need to be truthful about some of these issues, because we will say the same rehearsed stories every other time when we need to make presentations about gender-based violence. But maybe it's time for us to have frank conversations. So yeah, thank you so much for coming through today. This is the first episode, but it's also building up to an activity that we have tomorrow, A Vista at 2 p.m., where we're now using poetry to let out our expressions on gender-based violence. It's an activity that we have as YIT, Letreat, Vovo, and other partners. So maybe you might want to tell us a little bit about Treat, how it's coming into this activity, and really what you are looking forward to. And most importantly, there is one last question. How will we continue working together to end gender-based violence as a people?
I think I will go for your last question, the how will we continue working together to end gender-based violence as a people? What I will really say is GBV is an everyday fight. And as an everyday fight, it means we need to be at a point as individuals where we call out things as they are. If I see my neighbor beating up their wife and I keep quiet about it, I'm equally a perpetrator, unfortunately. Unless and until we learn that when you see something happening and you keep quiet about it, you're equally a perpetrator, I think our fight for GBV is still stagnant. If I know that my homeboy is putting rape drugs in girlies' strings and I am quiet about it, I am equally a rapist. If I know that my brother beats up my little sister, I'm equally a perpetrator for doing that. So until and unless we unlearn certain things and we start seeing things as they are, what is wrong, no matter how justifiable it is. We cannot justify. No, like, even if I push you too far, Thando, and you feel like slapping me, if you slap me, it becomes abuse, despite what I did. So we cannot justify certain things and say because this happened, it is justifiable. We need to stop trying to find justification for each and everything and actually deal with things as they are. What is wrong is wrong. So as a society, as individuals, we need to start there and realize that our fight is 365 days. It's not just amplified on the 16 days, but it's 365 days. And you had mentioned how Treat is coming into this. That is my boss's part to answer. If I answer that, I don't know. But basically what I'm going to say is it is an organization. We believe in the fight for GBV. We believe GBV affects us all, despite our sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, and sexual characteristics. No one is immune to GBV, and it is a fight that can be tackled intersectionally. We can't actually say we're going to fight this as an individual organization. We need each other to end GBV. We need each other to actually deal with this pandemic that we are in, because GBV is a pandemic on its own. So collaborating with other organizations to actually amplify and talk about, have those conversations around GBV is literally an honor for us as an organization, because we are saying we are one voice. We can end this together. Together we can orange the world as a unity.
We are mentioning treat. What is treat in a sentence?
Sorry?
Who is treat? What is treat?
Treat is stands for trans research, education, advocacy, and training. It is an organization that stands to deal and advocate with trans issues. We're here to empower.
Yeah, it will be interesting to note the different dimensions of gender-based violence within the trans community. And I'm really hoping that we are going to have that conversation in depth tomorrow through poetry. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for this conversation. Yeah, let's continue working together to end gender-based violence. Bye-bye.
Hi, Thando. Thank you for having me.
Sharp.